Hello, it's Doris with Aldi Books, and I am just going to tell you, what a week. and there are several days within that week which I will never get back. My screen time review came down this morning, and I was up 21% with my watch time this week. Yay. I don't have a television in the house hooked up to any television programming whatsoever. So I follow all the news on my phone. Yeah. What a week. What a week. But I'm feeling somewhat rejuvenated and hopeful, and I think I'm getting my focus back. I could focus on anything but the thing all last week. But yeah. In other news, I have an iPhone 12 Pro Max heading to my house on release day, which is Friday. I'm so excited. Heck, I might even order myself a ring light. Crazy, I know. Anyway, I haven't read all week, like barely at all. I've listened to Julia Quinn. We're listening to the Bridgertons reread for me, for all of us, Heidi and Katie and I, and such a delightful series. It's a Regency romance, one of the classics, you might say. There's a mini series coming out on Christmas Day. It starts, and I'm so excited. So we are rereading the Bridgertons, and they are funny and hilarious and heartwarming and awesome and just what I needed this week. But that is like all I read all week. I may have read a page or two here and there, but nothing really to speak of. But anyway, I do have the rest of the books I finished last month to chat about briefly. I don't even know how much I'll have to say about these, because this past week my mind is just anyway. So I finished The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu last month. This is billed as a science fiction short story collection, which I don't read a lot of science fiction, but it's very soft science fiction, I guess I would say. A lot of the stories are more just a tiny touch of science fiction, or a tiny touch of fantasy, or kind of mythological with an Asian bent, or a little magical realism. I really enjoyed this. It's a short story collection, and solid 4-star for me. There were a couple stories that didn't really hit, but there were 2 or 3 others that were just, and by and large I found them all enjoyable on various levels. Some were more kind of science fiction essays, thematically based. Some were a little bit edgier, some were almost historical fiction, alternate histories, things like that. But the Asian perspective in here was really interesting as well. And this book, if you're thinking about reading it, I highly recommend you read it with a friend or two, because this made for some really great discussions. And it was kind of neat because, I read this with Britta Bowler and Heidi from my reading life, and we all kind of brought our own perspectives and likes and interests to the table. So we kind of tag teamed on who enjoyed which stories and who got things out of them. And so it was really interesting to discuss them. And the last story in this book just it hit me hard. All the feels, all the feels. So yeah, there's that. And then I listened to Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere on audiobook, obviously. Where else would I listen to it? And I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It may be my favorite Neil Gaiman thus far. I've read this one. I've read The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which I love. So I need to reread that one because it's been a while. That might be my favorite. I've read The Graveyard Book, which I enjoyed a great deal, and American Gods, which I found super interesting. It wasn't like a page turner for me the way the others were, but and this is like, I'm sorry, my mind is just so shot that I don't even remember what this was about. I just remember I loved it. Oh, this is set in an alternate London, so it's kind of interesting the way it pairs like with what are those books, the fantasy trilogy? Oh, those are in the other room. You know what I'm talking about? Sorry. You know, they're red and white and black covers. Sorry. Anyway, alternate London, and just super cool, super interesting, very, very unique magical system and world, and yeah. And then I finished Charles Dickens' American Notes. I also really enjoyed this. It was a little slow at first. So this is Charles Dickens spends 6 months in the United States in 1842. He's got a lot of commentary on slavery in here in various sections, which, you know, he was very clear on his opinion of that system, and much respect to him for, you know, speaking out at the time. And yeah, it's just really interesting to see like this little snapshot of the United States from an outsider's perspective. Another thing I really got out of this was the transportation systems, like the steamboats and the canal boats and the trains and the stagecoaches. It's just really an interesting look into what transportation looked like, travel looked like at the time. And tobacco, oh my gosh, I laughed so hard, that chapter. Washington DC, that chapter was awesome. So yeah, once I got through the first 2 or 3 chapters, it really picked up pace, and I thoroughly enjoyed this look at my country. And then I also read Charles Dickens' A Life by Jane Smiley. This is it's kind of a really brief biography through the lens of his writings. So kind of looking at what he wrote and what was going on in his life at the time, and how those two connected, like how his life came out in his stories. So I kind of skimmed some parts of that because I've only read like 3 Charles Dickens recently, and I really have not enjoyed his fiction as an adult. So I think this would be more suited to someone who really enjoys Dickens and has read him quite extensively. It'd be very interesting for you. And, you know, I discovered the controversy about Dickens and his marriage and children. So, you know, that was enlightening. This book just touches on it briefly, and I don't really want to go into it now, but yeah. And then Anthony Trollope, Framley Parsonage. So with this one, I have completed the Barchester Towers series. Really enjoyed Trollope. I just like his style of writing so much. And yeah, there's not really anything to say about this. It's just Trollope and the Barchester world. I have found it interesting, though, too, to think about, you know, all these Victorians, but I just really respect Trollope's look at society at the time, you know, financially and through the lens of the Church of England, and, you know, social dynamics and things. He was very progressive for his time. So it's kind of sad to see, you know, his little notes of, you know, slurs against the Jews. You know, it's like he was just so awesome, and then he didn't realize that that was, you know, he needed to work on that. But anyway, and there's, you know, I think talk that some of his other books are worse than that one. But anyway, then I read The Story That Cannot Be Told by J. Caspar Kramer. This is a middle grade book, and I didn't really know what it was about. I got this from Jenny King, who works, one of her co-workers is the spouse of the author. So that was really neat to, you know, have that connection via Jenny. So I was really excited for the author. I mean, this cover is so delightful. And there's some, you know, niceties inside as well. But like I said, I just assumed it'd be, you know, some kind of modern, you know, little girl story. But in actuality, this was set in the 80s, I believe it was, in Romania, and like, you know, the fall of that communism in Romania. And so I didn't really know a lot about that, even though I, you know, was in high school during that time period. So this was just very enlightening and interesting, and just a really enjoyable story. And it was sad in places, obviously, but yeah, that was a good one. If you are looking for middle grade March books, that would be a good recommendation. And then I read 100 Flowers by Gail Tsukiyama. This is set during the Cultural Revolution, I believe it's called, you know, with the communism, and you know, the more educated classes often being sent to the countryside to be re-educated. So this one centers around a family. So there's a boy, he's 7, and his father has been sent out to be re-educated. They haven't heard from him in almost a year. The grandfather is there at the home, the grandfather, the mother, and the little boy. And the little boy falls out of a tree and breaks his arm. And while they're at the hospital, there's a girl there that is pregnant, 15 years old, and on the street, you know, homeless. And so their paths eventually cross. And, you know, it was fine, but it never really went many places. There wasn't any, like, the characterization didn't really spark my interest either. It was short though, so it's fine. It was short. I've read a lot of others that are better from this time period, so and you know, maybe if I'd read this one first, it would have, you know, hit me more, but you know, I had read more and already, you know, was aware. So yeah, so there's that. There's my boo baby. Anyway, sorry I was a bit rambly, but you know, this week, wow. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will be back soon, I hope. Bye.